Welcome back. It's still this morning live on Metro TV. We are live on DSTV channel 277, live on the Facebook and YouTube Metro TV Ghana. Follow us on Instagram Metro TV_G. This morning we are looking at lessons for Africa from the 2023 Zambia budget, and Miss Betty Wilkinson is the senior financial markets advisor with 30 years of experience, and she's the author of Lessons for Africa from the Zambia 2023 publication. And it's an interesting article for Africans and Africans at large in terms of sustainable growth and in terms of economic wise. So this morning we have her on the line via Zoom to tell us more about the publication. Good morning, Betty.
Good morning. It's nice to be with you.
Nice to have you here. Okay, so you recently authored the article Lessons for Africa from the Zambia 2023 budget. This has been covered by so many Pan-African publications. First off, give us a brief summary of the article and what's the importance of this particular article.
So this is a really crucial time in Africa, and it's also a crucial time in Zambia. And what's important to be thinking about is where are we going, and how are we going to get there? And a year ago, when the new government was elected, it was a significant situation. No IMF program, significant debt. We had even done a debt default, which was a first in Africa. And I think that it's important to recognize that we needed a lot of extra work to be done. So the government stepped in and started working really fast. So they had to do a budget right away, and then this is the second budget, but it's the most substantial. And this budget shows that there are important steps to be taken to make sure that people are well off. I mean, there's a lot of poverty because of COVID. This is also true in Ghana. There was a very large budget deficit, plus 10% of GDP, which is also true in Ghana. And so the recovery and addressing the debt questions required a lot of thinking about how do we protect the poor, how do we protect low-income households and households that are in trouble, and at the same time, how do we build our future? So the first thing that we looked at was, okay, so what have you done? Well, you've added 30,000 additional teachers. You've added 10,000 additional people to the health services. You've budgeted significant new funding for community development and community issues, community spend. And also the government has been thinking about how does it make the civil service more efficient, more effective, things of this nature. So interestingly, the IMF program is now in play. The addressing of the debt budget, the deficit funding and the problems with the debt is now well in play and being addressed. And it's, for me, quite interesting that at the same time, when Zambia a little stepped forward, Ghana is right behind us, talking to the IMF now, talking about the budget, talking about the subsidies, talking about how do we make sure, and also you hired 40,000 nurses to make sure that the health system was working effectively, especially for low-income households. So what was the article about? The article was about these things are all going well, and now what's missing? And we need to work more on. So the first thing I said was, you need to work more on women. There's only 15% of women in the parliament. So women, because of tradition, it's different. So.
So Betty, those were the gaps you were talking about. I mean, you stated that the budget review looks pretty uniform in praise, but then there are some gaps. And in these gaps, you did mention about gender, you did mention about selective, inclusive growth, and also informal to formal growth. So we'll take it bit by bit. Tell us more about the gender, inclusivity, and other things. So take us through that.
Okay, let me take you through that. So let's start with gender. Interestingly to me, as with Ghana, there are very low numbers of women in the parliament. There's long traditions of women as housekeepers and as managers of emergency money, food, school fees, and costs by women in the households.
Yeah.
So the problem is then the economy doesn't grow, because we already know in Africa that when women lead businesses, when they have power, then incomes increase and the households do better.
Yeah.
We know this. So I think that it's important to be thinking about how can we empower women more effectively.
True.
And where are they? Where are they in the parliament? Where are they as ministers? All of these leadership is really important.
Yeah.
So that's the first thing. Then the second thing is, how do we deal with selective issues of empowering the economy and making it more inclusive? And there are two things that really have come up. One is the effectiveness, efficiency, and spend associated with the civil service. So, I mean, you have in Ghana, you have about 500,000 people who are working in the civil service. We have about 350 here in Zambia. And we have to be looking at how effective, how efficient are the civil servants? How much do we empower them to do the jobs? There was a quite interesting study that was done on Ghana that looked at this and said, well, actually, if you control civil servants more, they're actually less effective. But if you delegate decision-making to them and then make sure and then follow it up with close monitoring, then it actually works better. And people actually do their jobs more effectively. So that's the civil service. Then with regard to subsidies, Ghana has a large number of subsidies in the budget, and we share some of them. So we have a fertilizer and seed budget, the same as you do in Ghana. But oil, power, fishing, even toilets, those are all subsidies that occur in the Ghanaian budget. And you have to watch out for this, because if you subsidize for too long, then it becomes unaffordable, especially this year with fertilizer being so expensive.
Yeah.
So you have to be thinking of, if you have a subsidy, is it for the very poorest who really will never come out of that? Or is it to help people to build their capability and earn more income and get out of poverty, which is what you hope for when you do agricultural subsidies and fuel subsidies for that matter. So subsidies is the second thing with regard to efficiency and making the government effective and more inclusive in the economy. The third thing that I talked about, and it's probably the most important for Africa, it's also true for Ghana, is the issue of informal versus formal businesses. So in Ghana, the numbers look about between 80 and 90% of the activities that take place in the economy run out of informal business. That's a very large number.
Yeah.
And so those people don't pay tax, do they? And they also struggle. They struggle with, how do I get help from the government? How do I register my business? How do I get the big one, working capital? How do I borrow? And we're all talking about let's help SMEs.
Yeah.
But if 90% of them are informal, how are you going to help them?
Yeah.
This is a big problem. You don't want to just give them money. What you want to do is empower them. And so how do you make it easy to register? How do you simplify the rules associated with business? How do you help them to record their information so they can go to a bank and say, this is what my accounts look like in the last year? So this is crucial for all of Africa. It's crucial for Zambia, it's crucial for Ghana, and for other countries as well.
Yeah. But do you think
Make it easy.
True. But then I was coming to there from informal enterprise to formal business. How effective is the conversion going to be in terms of looking at some African countries, some budgets? Are they tailored to that particular side? Is it going to really be effective?
That's probably the $100 million question. And the way to make it effective is by saying, okay, let's start with helping informal businesses to understand what we can get to them, what they can access if they formalize.
True.
So, okay, if you formalize, you can get loans more easily, you can get technical services more easily, you can get information more easily. We can give you temporary subsidies so that you can, for example, you don't have a smartphone. Okay, well, let's subsidize your smartphone purchase if you start to become a registered business. Then let's make it easier. And in Zambia, one of the discussions that's taking place is, let's give the first year you register your business, we'll help train you on how to keep your accounts and how to manage people and things like that. And for the first year, you don't have to pay taxes. That's in discussion.
Wow.
And then in
Wow.
the second year, we'll help you get to a bank, we'll help you borrow, and understand how to borrow. You have to make the case for that yourself.
Yeah.
And then you pay part, but not all of your taxes. So make this whole system simpler, and then help people to get into the system, to understand how it works. It's sort of like mobile money. You know, mobile money 5 years ago, people didn't even talk about it.
Yeah.
But now even your grandmother knows how to go and get mobile money and how to send money to her nephew. So it's a question of make the process really simple,
Yeah.
and then help people understand and use it.
True. I mean, in relation to the previous question, you also asserted that generally across Africa, informal enterprise are run more by women than men by 10%. Yeah. True. Given this, how important is it for African governments to prioritize gender financing? And let me ask, is it really attainable? Can we have an African government saying that they are actually prioritizing gender financially? I mean, when they are setting the budgets, they'll put in women contributing to the 100% factor. They'll really consider the women when they are doing these, projections.
So many countries in Southern Africa and in Africa generally have agreed to the commitment from the UN to do gender responsive budgeting.
Okay.
So that means you look at the budget and you say, how will this benefit women?
True.
And given that, you know, in your population, 51% of your population is female. Mm-hmm. So shouldn't the budget address the 51%?
Yeah, that's fair.
What we see is when budgets are gender sensitive, when companies hire women at the top, everybody benefits, they make more money, they do jobs better, there's less corruption, all of this stuff makes sense. So the challenge is you don't have any leaders who are female. So, you know, if you've only got 12 to 15% who are in the parliament, and about probably the same numbers when you think about in Ghana, when you think about the number of women who are ministers or senior people in government, we're all looking at those countries where women are leaders. You know, look at Liberia or something like this, and you say, so how's the country doing? And it's doing better.
Yeah.
And that's the only difference. So I think that it's important to recognize women are really crucial in this process.
Yeah.
And we leave them behind at our peril.
I mean, it's $1 million question, but then do you really think it's attainable? In the near future, 5-10 years, we'll have them really doing this. Let's be really honest about it.
So the exciting stuff that's going on in South Africa, 46% of their parliament is female.
Yeah.
And what we see is when the number of women leaders is over 25%, things start changing.
Yeah.
So do I believe it can happen? Yes, I do.
It could happen. It could happen.
Sure.
I mean,
how long it takes? It just depends. It depends. Do men understand that traditionally women were the homemakers? Now we do everything.
Yeah.
And that they benefit when we do other stuff too.
I mean, Betty, before I allow you to go, in a few words, how can Africa at large, Ghana specific, have a sustainable economic growth? Looking at the crises that are happening around the world, there's Russia, Ukraine, we are waiting for the IMF to say this and that. How can African at large, Ghana specific, have a sustainable economic growth?
Ooh, another 100 million question, right? So having an IMF deal makes a difference because it makes your country credible. People who are investors, who are other bilaterals, multilaterals, the business communities, they'll feel more confident that things are going to move forward.
Okay.
Ghana has an advantage in terms of its resources. Its people are amazing. It's young. So educational systems really need to be reformed to make all this work. We're doing that in Zambia. We're actually pulling apart the national curriculum and completely rewriting it for the modern life.
Yeah.
And we're also here doing something that you could be thinking about, which is adding financial inclusion and financial education into the curriculum. So now a kid goes to school and learns about money and how do I manage it and how do I earn it and how do I spend it and how do I save it and what about the family? All of that stuff. If people understand about money and if they understand where's our economy going and where's its future, and if they buy into it and say, yes, we have a future. And with the youth, they are optimistic. You digitize, all of that stuff. This is the future of Africa. I think I'm in Africa now because I truly believe that this is the future. It's the future of the planet.
Thank you very much, Betty. I mean, the next time we'll have you, we're talking about, you mentioned digitalization, you mentioned about constitutional reform. I mean, those are the recent conversations we are having here in Africa and also in Ghana. So the next time we have you on, we'll talk about these digitalization and also constitutional reforms and other things. Thank you very, very much for shedding light on this lesson for Africa from the 2023 Zambia budget. Really, really appreciate your time.
Sure. Thanks for being here. Pleasure.
Okay, so we're talking to Miss Betty Wilkinson, who is a senior financial market advisor with 30 years of experience, telling us about an article that she recently published that is lessons for Africans from the 2023 Zambia budget. Now we'll move straight to getting some tidbits on breast cancer awareness. And so together we rise, these are the things that you need to do to protect yourself from breast cancer. And this is where we end today's show. My name is Nanaya Tanobwache. It has been a fruitful one. Up next is Good Morning Ghana with Annie Ifwa Ampo. At 3 to 4, I'll be back with entertainment review. Do enjoy the rest of our programs.